Dear student, today we are going to learn meaning of share, types of shares and difference between equity shares and preference shares. Myself, Professor Dr. V.K. Sawant. Capital is the need of every business. It may be small business or large business. Especially, capital plays dominant role in the case of large scale business. In case of company, capital of a limited company is not contributed by few persons, but it contributed by the public at large. A company is an organization which carries business as per their own uh, impression. Capital is needed to carry business activities. In case of company, capital is raised by large number of people. The promoters of the company determine the size of capital by taking into consideration various factors, and this capital is divided into parts or units, each part or unit being of equal value. Such part or unit is called a share. In case of a company, capital is called as share capital. It means number of people contributing their money in the business by purchasing some shares from that company. There are certain definitions of shares. A share has been defined as the unit of measure of the members' interest in company, and it is always denoted in money value. A share means contribution made by the member for the sake of company as capital. According to Companies Act, share means share in the share capital of a company. It is simple definition of share. Another definition is given by Justice Farewell. Interest of the shareholders in the company measured by a sum of money for the purpose of liability in the first place and interest in the second, but also consisting of other rights given by the articles. A company runs as per the articles of association and memorandum of the company. In simple words, a share of a company is one of the units into which the capital of company is divided. Each share has face value. The face value of a share may be 10, rupees 20, rupees 30, rupees 50, rupees 100. It means that the face value of a share is started from start, and uh, in another type of companies it may be for 20 rupees 20 per share, rupees 50 per share, like this. The capital of company can be divided into different units with definite value called as shares. From this definition, we can trace out that a share is always denoted in money value. It means that value of shares is expressed in terms of money. A share means a share in the share capital of a company. A person who holds share in any company's capital, he becomes the shareholder or member of that company. Membership carries different rights, like voting right. Share is a movable property of shareholders. It means shares are transferable and he has freedom to transfer his shares in the manner prescribed by the Articles of Association of the company. Shares are and most important and familiar source of raising capital. In case of a company can raise share capital for its initial stage, for its development and for its expansion. By taking into account need of capital, company may issue its share in the open market. Public limited company has a right to issue its shares in open market and collect money from the public as a capital. There are two types of shares. It means that the capital of the company may consist of two types of shares, equity shares and preference shares. Firstly, we concern with what is meant by equity shares. According to the Companies Act, the shares which are not preference shares are termed as equity shares. Equity share capital is the basic capital of the company. Equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. They do not participate in day-to-day transaction of the company, but they appoint their representative called as board of directors, and the board of directors is the apex body of the company, and they take decision for the well-being of the members. Another type of shares is preference shares. Preference shares which enjoy the preferential rights in receiving to dividend and repayment of capital as the time of liquidation over the equity shares are called preference shares. Preference shareholders have a right before equity shareholders for getting dividend and capital. In case of preference shares, the rate of dividend is fixed, say 6%, 7%, 8%, 9%, etc. And it does not fluctuate according to the profit earned by the company. So, we conclude that the earning capacity of the company does not affect on the fixed dividend rate of the shareholders. But dividend payable to the equity shareholders fluctuate according to profits earned by the company each year. In case of equity shareholders, the rate of dividend is not stable, not static. It is necessary to remember that the dividend will be paid to shareholders on paid up capital while taking decision of declaration of dividend. The board of directors takes into account various factors. First factor is earning capacity of the business. But in case of equity shareholders, they have get dividend after the dividend paid to the preference shareholders. Now we are concerned with types of preference shares. There are 8 types of preference shares. First type of preference share is cumulative preference shares. Cumulative preference shares which carries the right of fixed amount of dividend at a fixed rate. The amount of dividend is payable from the profits of next year. If the company has no sufficient profit to pay the dividend in the current year. Another type of preference shares is non-cumulative preference shares. Non-cumulative preference shares carry the right of fixed amount of dividend. The fixed dividend is paid only from the divisible profit of the company. The holders of such shares will not get the amount of dividend if the company has no sufficient profit and they will not claim for the said dividend. Another type of preference shares is redeemable preference shares. Redeemable preference shares which are redeemable after the expiry of stipulated period, whether the company wound up or not, are called as redeemable preference shares. Type number 5 of preference shares is participating preference shares. Participating shares which are entitled to share in surplus profit of the company in addition to fixed rate of dividend are known as participating preference shares. It means that participating preference shareholders have a right to get surplus in addition to the fixed rate of dividend. Another type of preference shares is non-participating preference shares. Non-participating preference shares on which fixed rate of dividend is paid without accompanying additional rights of share in surplus profit are called as non-participating preference shares. 7 number type of preference shares is convertible preference shares. In simple way, convertible shares which can be converted into equity shares of the company at the option of the shareholder and accounting to the terms of issue of shares are known as convertible preference shares. Last type of preference shares is non-convertible preference shares. These are the preference shares has not been confirmed the right to get this share converted into equity shares are called as non-convertible preference shares. In last two types, convertible preference shares means the shares which can be converted into equity shares, and non-convertible preference shares are the shares which cannot be converted into equity shares. Now we are looking difference between equity shares and preference shares. Basically, there are two types of shares in case of a company: equity shares and preference shares. There is a difference between equity shares and preference shares. I would like to mention here the difference between equity shares and preference shares. Equity shares which are not preference shares. Simple meaning of equity shares are the shares which are not preference shares. Preference shares which enjoy the preferential rights in receiving to dividend and repayment of capital at the time of liquidation or the equity shares are called preference shares. From this meaning, we trace out that equity shares are not preference shares. Equity shares are, are also known as ordinary shares. Preference shares have a right of getting dividend earlier as equity shareholders. In case of liquidation of company, preference shareholders have a right to get capital before equity shareholders. Ownership. Equity shareholders are the real owners of the company. They possess ownership because of shares held by them. Preference shareholders are not owners of the company except convertible preference shares. Equity shareholders are real owners of the company, but preference shareholders are not real owners of the company. Voting rights. Equity shareholders generally enjoy voting rights at the time of election of board of directors. Equity shareholders have a right to vote, but preference shareholders do not have any voting rights except their class meetings. It means that they are not electing their representative, but preference shareholders elect their representative called as board of directors. Board of directors are responsible for making policy decisions of the company. Payment of dividend. Payment of equity dividend is made after the payment of preference dividend. It means that preference shareholders have a priority for getting dividend rather than equity shareholders. In case of preference shares, payment of preference dividend is made before the payment of equity dividend. It means that preference shareholders have a priority for getting dividend. Now we are concerned with what is the rate of dividend. In case of equity shares, the rate of equity dividend may vary from year to year depending upon profit decision of directors and members. So we trace out that the rate of dividend in case of equity shares is not fixed or is not static or is not stable. In case of preference shares, the rate of preference dividend is fixed, say 7%, 8%, 9%, etc. Arrears of dividend. In case of equity shares, arrears of dividend cannot be accumulated in any case, but in case of preference shares, arrears of dividend may be accumulated. Repayment of capital. Repayment of equity share capital is made after the repayment of preference share capital as the time of liquidation. So it is necessary to remember that equity share capital is generally irredeemable, but at the time of liquidation of the company, the equity shareholders may be get capital portion after the preference share capital has been paid. In case of preference shares, repayment of preference share capital is made before the repayment of equity share capital at the time of liquidation. It is noted that every company came into force according to provisions of Companies Act 2013, as well as every company ends as per the provisions laid down in the Companies Act. Formation and liquidation, these two things are related, and implementation of provisions laid down in the Companies Act. Another point of difference is convertible. Equity shares cannot be convertible. Preference shares may be convertible. In this way, in this lecture, we get information about what is meant by share. What are the types of shares? Two types of shares are there: equity shares and preference shares. Preference shares have also 8 types. Then lastly, we concerned with difference between equity shares and preference shares. From this point, we learned equity shareholders are real owners of the company. Preference shareholders are not real owners of the company. There is no fixed rate of dividend on equity shares, but there is a fixed rate of dividend on preference shares. Preference shareholders have a right of voting. On the other hand, equity shareholders have a right of voting, and preference shareholders have no right of voting. In this way, we get information about share, types of shares, and difference between equity shares and preference shares. In this way, I am concluding my presentation. Thank you one and all.